Welcome aboard the National Football Show. Your boy Dan Sileo. You feel it? Football season is here, man. Exhibition football right around the corner. Next couple days, we're going to get a ton of it. We're going to have a lot of storylines, too. And as we're going into training camp, we're also getting a lot of storylines that are coming out of these camps, as teams are right now at 90 players on a roster, okay? That's what you go to camp with. And you pare that down to 53. And that's who you're going to do battle with as we get ready for the upcoming season. God, in less than, 2 months? We got the start of the NFL season, first week in September. We're getting ready to rock and roll here. So teams got a lot of storylines. And I saw a show last night that gave me great ammo. You know what? I got to tell you, I am a creature of content, good and bad. Like, watch this. If the Philadelphia Eagles go 17-0, it's a great story. If the Eagles go 0-17, it's an even better story. Okay? That's where I am. That's how I look at content. What's ever good and compelling and makes you lean forward, you know? That's what I'm all about. I love it. And last night I saw Mike McCarthy on Hard Knocks. You know, I mean, dude, we had Marty Caldner. And if you missed that interview, please go back on the JAKIB Media channel, National Football Show, and you can listen to that interview that we did. Marty Caldner is the creator of NFL Hard Knocks. He was the guy that started the whole thing, put the format together, the whole blueprint of it all, sold it to the NFL, and the NFL bought it hook, line, and sinker, right? And the one thing that he said when we had him on a couple weeks ago, he was saying this: God, we just try to want everybody just to be as natural as possible. So here's Mike McCarthy last night, and I'm not going to use all the F-bombs. This guy dropped about 1,000 F-bombs, and I'm going to give you my impression. And, you know, from what I understand, Mike McCarthy wasn't this guy when he was in Green Bay. And last night, I'm like, who is that guy? And I realized it was McCarthy, the head coach of the Cowboys. Cowboys are being featured on Hard Knocks this year. This ain't the effing place that you're going to have losers. I'm going to tell you how NFL veteran guys think about a guy like that. This is going to be a year of champions. Under their breath, they're going, this guy, New Rockney? You can't give me one of these Rockney speeches? It's the first week of training camp. This is what we're going to do. We're going to make sure we get everything. And this guy's playing clearly for the camera. And you're sitting here going like this. If you're in that room right now, you're going like this. Man, this guy ain't proven shit yet. That guy ain't done anything in the Cowboys. I don't care what he did in Green Bay. Dude, you had Brett Favre and you had Aaron Rodgers and you won one Super Bowl. I don't know. Two of the greatest players in the history of the position, and you're fumbling around with losing NFC championship games. You're 1-3 in NFC championship games, and you're telling me this is how we're going to do it. The Cowboys are going to be, we're going to be front and center. And you're like, oh, my God. What a dope. You know, of all the coaches that are on the hot seat, I'm going to name you a few here. McCarthy's got to be. Here, look, Jerry's not going to want to do this because remember who hires the coach. See, this is the dynamic that really kind of cripples Jerry. When Jerry sees a mistake, the mistakes are usually his, and he's got to rectify them, and he doesn't like to do that because that's admitting failure. When you put yourself out there as GM, you can't make critical decisions. You can't make them as fast as you need to. So what happens? That scab stays open, and you don't put a Band-Aid on it, and it doesn't get a chance to heal because you're still trying to heal your ego and how to deal with your ego. The decisions that are made in Dallas are usually a year or two too late. Why in the hell would you keep Ezekiel Elliott on your team for $20 million? Is Zeke a $20 million player? Honestly, watch this. You'd say this. Well, he's a good football player. But you think Ezekiel Elliott, that running back's a $20 million guy. Like, would you put him ahead of Alvin Kamara? I mean, Derrick Henry in Tennessee doesn't make that much money. He signed the franchise tag for $14 million. He's the best back in the game. You think that guy, hey, he ain't $20 million bucks. Jerry should have cut him. He'll cut him next year. And it's not because he doesn't like the kid. It's because of the money. Look at Amari Cooper farting around all over that Cowboy organization. That guy's a $20 million. Again, another decision that should have been made, because the reason he doesn't do it is because, why? He made a trade with the Raiders and gave up a 1 for him. You see, I said this to you about the New England dynasty and how the New England dynasty was able to survive all them years. Belichick didn't give a crap about who you were. That's why he never got, like, all in love with his players. He always fell in like with his players. How many times did you see him move a dude the year before you went, man, that guy still got a lot of football left in him? That's when he moved the guy. Then he gets to that place, has a year and a half, and he's finished. Richard Seymour got rid of his ass. Richard Seymour's probably a Pro Football Hall of Fame DT. Got rid of Chandler Jones. That was a mistake. Bill needed picks, though. Traded his ass to Arizona. Probably one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. That was a mistake. I say to this day that was a mistake, because the Patriots clearly could use a pass rushing defensive end. Some of them guys that got on their team right now can't get anybody on the ground. Oh, and by the way, stop drafting Bama guys. They don't really star all that much in the NFL. Take a look at the Hall of Fame over the last couple of years. Go down to the U, baby. Miami's had 7 since 2002 go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And next year, Devin Hester, Reggie Wayne, and Andre Johnson are going in. Come on, man. You got to recruit the right schools. Don't recruit Alabama. They're good players, not great players. Who's a great player from Bama? Julio Jones? Derrick Henry? Okay. Thank you. I got him on one hand. All good. All good. Hey, don't worry. I'm getting fired up for the first week of Labor Day. It's Bama, Miami. So know this, that I'll be throwing trash out towards Bama as we're getting closer towards that game. So if you hear me starting to bark more trash. Oh, and my top 16 came out, my power top 16 from the National Football Foundation and the Football Writers Association of America. I have my Pro Power 16 up on my Twitter page at Dan Sileo Show. And yes, I was easily bought off because Dabo Sweeney did my show here on the National Football Show. So you can imagine who's number one. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show. Yeah, I'm watching Mike McCarthy last night, and I'm going, who is this guy cussing like this, like a sailor? That's the face of the Cowboys as coach? Wow. I was really disappointed with his performance. If I were going to give him Rotten Tomatoes, I'd be like this. Hey, dude, you got about 6 Rotten Tomatoes for that performance last night. That was a stinker. Jerry's guy's not good. Hey, man. You know, Dan Campbell in Detroit's better. Hey, man. You sons of bitches, you better play this year. I thought he was William Money from Unforgiven. I'll come back and kill every one of you sons of bitches. Honestly, man, I thought he was William Money. Better treat Ned right. You better treat him right. You better not go after any whores. I love Unforgiven. One of my favorite movies. One of my favorite lines of all time. Hey, man, or I'll come back and kill every one of you sons of bitches. It's great. Great movie. Great. That's what I was thinking I was watching with Mike McCarthy on Hard Knocks. Hey, I'll cut every one of you sons of bitches if you don't play hard in 2021. I started laughing at the thing. I was like, this is embarrassing, man. Jerry's over in the corner eating McDonald's and a Happy Meal. You see the amount of salt that guy? Hey, my boy Krause, he eats like mountain oysters and stuff for his health now. You know, I mean, this guy eats special things, kidney beans and kidneys and hearts and mountain oysters, and Jerry's pounding the salt on the Happy Meal. He's like, yeah, man, my Egg McMuffin, this thing needs it really good here. This guy drives in the line over at the McDonald's to stand in line to get a Happy Meal or an Egg McMuffin in the morning. Dude, this guy's got a flip phone and drives through a drive-through at McDonald's. It's classic. I love it. Guy's got a $6 billion team. Oh, excuse me. They're beef balls. Thank you. Just keeping score here. We want to make sure we're accurate here on the Sileo show because we do get accused of not being accurate at times. They're not mountain oysters. They're beef balls. Just to keep score here. How you doing? All right. Yeah, so Mike McCarthy. I don't think he ends up getting fired this year. But I would say this about McCarthy. Bro, if you don't have a winning season this year, and at the end of the season, that team is 7-10, and that thing just starts falling all over itself again. Hey, and I don't think you're any better than you were a year ago. You got the kid from Penn State. Okay, you needed a safety. You needed cornerbacks. You needed to find people that could stop the pass and the run. As I said to you before, 9 of the 11 guys on that defense needed to be replaced. You replaced one of them, really. Hey, I'm going to say it again. Dallas, they're going to float around 500 again. And the reason they're going to float around 500 is because Dak's back. It's the only reason. Let me throw another coach at you here. So Matt Nagy in Chicago. So Matt Nagy's like, hey, we got Andy Dalton as our starter. Why? Bro, you of all coaches in the NFL, the sand dial is starting to run out with the sand. You know that little thing you turn over? That's your job that's your job depending on you making the right decision. That sand is just about out of the top of the jar here. Okay, people keep telling me you're a hell of a coach. Really? Well, make a hell of a decision here. Andy Dalton? Wow. Is that a job-saving move? Or do you think playing the rookie Justin Fields is the job-saving move? Know this. Anytime you put money on a football field, you're saving your job. Wins won't. Lovie Smith was 9-7 one year there, and they fired him in Chicago. I want to throw a stat at you, too. Do you know the Chicago Bears? I want you to listen to this. Everyone listening to me right now that's listening, following along, everybody, okay? Know this. The Chicago Bears have not had an all-pro quarterback since Sid Luckman in 1950. 1950 is the last time they had an all-pro quarterback. 1950. They don't produce them there. They don't know how to coach him there. They've never really had a guy. Why don't you put Fields in? Say you're giving them the money. And when you hear this, well, we promised Andy Dalton, get it. There's no promises in the NFL. Coaches are liars. Hell, you could lie to a player. He's expecting you to lie to him. He is. Coaches are expecting you to go back on your word. They know that. They're always going to go back on their word because they can't be honest because you know why? We all work for somebody in the world. Front office, everything. Like I said about Philadelphia, and by the way, all the things that are said about Philadelphia, I had a guy, you know what I had a guy tell me about Philadelphia and working in Philly now? General managers make play call selections. Owners make play call selections. People in the front office tell you who to play, who not to play. Now, personally, I think they tried to clean that up this year. And that's why you're seeing Nick Sirianni get an opportunity to have a little bit more latitude in his coaching searches when he went out and looked for guys to bring in. And on top of that, I think they've backed off that. Because if you ran Doug Peterson, who had one of the most successful eras of Eagle football, out of the building, 3 years removed from a Super Bowl, that's a you thing. Doug's going to get another job. And God forbid if you have two coaches coaching in the NFL, Andy Reid, and say Doug goes somewhere else and wins another Super Bowl. Say he goes to New York and he coaches the Giants. Say he goes somewhere else. Say he goes to Dallas and he coaches the Cowboys. I mean, you don't want to see that guy roll into something. Say he goes to Seattle after Pete Carroll retires. He'd be a great coach in Seattle. Defensive-minded kind of guy in a way. wants to build with tough defense, running the ball, intermediate passing game. That could be a great fit in there. But Matt Nagy, come on, dog. I think you got to play your guy, man. You got to play the kid. Play him. Zach Taylor, I had to look up who the head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals was. Reason why I think it's significant is because they got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's not feeling it after he got injured last year, and they're saying that he's lagging. That's going to be a common trait. Really, I didn't even know who the head coach of the Bengals was. I knew it was Zach something. I didn't know it was Zach Taylor. Who's Zach Taylor? Never heard of him. But here's the thing with the Bengals. The Bengals are not going to just start firing coaches and start paying coaches who they still owe money to. They're an organization that counts every nickel that they spend. And they're not big. They let contracts run out. They're not going to pay 3 or 4 coaches like you see in Dallas or you see in some of these other joints. Like Philadelphia paying 2 coaches at once. That's not going to happen in Cincinnati with the Bengals. But I do think it's a decent job, and I think that you're going to see Joe Burrow have some say in whether or not Zach Taylor, if that team gets out to like a horrible start again and you're closing in on the halfway point and you've got 1 or 2 wins, you're going to get some feedback and input from, in my opinion, Joe Burrow. I hear he connects with him very well. Joe likes him. There's a good connection there. So they'll figure it out, I think. But Zach Taylor, I don't know. Watch this. Hot seat? I don't even know who he is. Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. Think he's on the hot seat? Well, he's the worst coach in the NFC West. And that's not a bad thing. Now, I'm going to go down the list of those coaches that are in the West, though. I'm going to show you something here and where he is. Arizona, by the way, we're going to talk to Howard Balzer, our NFL Hall of Fame insider from Sports Illustrated. That'll be in hour number 2. He is in Phoenix, and he goes to the practices. I think Cliff's on the firing line here. He's got to win. You're in a division right now where you can make some noise, and I'm going to show you how you can make some noise here. And he's got a good player, and Kyler Murray. I think the team has improved. You ended up making a move. Steve Keim, the general manager, you ended up getting DeAndre Hopkins in there. Now you're bringing J.J. Watt in there. You got Chandler Jones on the football team. One of the top pass rushers, like I said. It's a good football team. They need to run the ball better. Larry Fitzgerald is probably your number 3 right now, but that's okay. It's a solid football team. How about this? That could look like a 10-7 team. It's a good look. They're not bad. I mean, could that be a 9-8 team? Yeah, it could be something like that. They're going to win ball games. How about this? The Cardinals are going to win ball games that they shouldn't, and they're going to lose ball games that they shouldn't. But what do you do with Kingsbury? Is he on the firing line? I would say this to you. Yeah, a little bit. Got to show improvement this year. But let me throw you in the NFC West here. So let me show you what 2 coaches did in that division to ensure their job security. Watch this. Let's start with Sean McVeigh. So Sean McVeigh, when he first got in the NFL and he became the coach of the Rams, this was with Jared Goff. Follow me here. They had the number 1 offense in the NFL. Wonderful. Calling him a super coach, one of the great young new innovators, right? Remember? Second year, they go to number 2. Damn good. 1, 2, first 2 years. When you're talking total offense, team is a Super Bowl contending team, got to the game itself. I mean, right? Got out coached by Belichick. That's not a bad thing. So your first 2 years, you're this, 1-2 in the NFL. Everyone's starting to go like this. Wow, this guy, he's a special player when it comes to putting players on the field and on his roster. This guy's a special coach. All of a sudden, in the 3rd year, what happens? What happens in the 3rd year? You start looking at it and you're like, number 11 in offense. I would say to you this, okay, well, a little bit outside the top 10. You're starting to go downhill. I personally think it had a lot to do with Todd Gurley not being able to run the ball. But this is how your star can fall. I'm going to show you. Do you know what they were last year offensively? They were 22 in the NFL. The Rams were 22. So what did Mcveigh do? Okay. he used Jared Goff as a fall guy. He said, this guy here, I got to get a different guy. So what did he do? He went out and got the least accomplished quarterback with the biggest hype when it comes to quarterbacks in Matthew Stafford, and brought him in because he's feeling it a little bit. Is he not? Think of that for a minute. You go from 1 to 22 inside of 4 years in offense. You had to use somebody as a fall guy. This guy's got a horrific, I think he's like 75 and 90 something as a starting quarterback, Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford's won nothing. You know, actually, we're talking about Andy Dalton's actually got a better record. He does. Carson Palmer has a better record than what Matthew Stafford does. So, I mean, he had to do something. Same thing with Kyle Shanahan. What's happened? You know, when Jimmy Garoppolo is not on the field, do you know that Kyle Shanahan has an under 500 record as a head coach in San Francisco? So these two coaches, Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, we've been told the last couple of years, oh, my God, play calling, these guys are the new look, what the NFL is all about. And, you know, yeah, but what did they do? Smart. You know what they did? They knew they had to save their job, and they didn't want anybody barking at them or any of the wolves starting to howl for their gigs. So what did Shanahan do? Shanahan moved up to 3 to take Trey Lance. Now you've got Trey Lance, and you've got Jimmy Garoppolo in the room. And Kyle Shanahan, he did all that for job security. What you don't want to have happen is you don't want to be one of these coaches. You build a roster up for the next dude. So Shanahan and McVeigh, this offseason, they used their current quarterbacks that they had. Jared Goff now with the Lions. And Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been a pro, by the way, through this whole tire-kicking scene by John Lynch, the GM. These two guys here are angling. And don't think players in that locker room don't know it. Now, if you're a player in those locker rooms, though, you are doing this. Watch. Hey, man. They are trying to win. They are trying to win, but they're also trying to save their gigs. That's why those moves were made. Those moves were made because people started doing this. Hey, Kyle, when are you going to win again? Now, get it. He went to a Super Bowl a couple of years ago. But nobody cared. Hey, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago and got fired. That is your litmus test from now on moving forward. When someone says something to you, this guy had a winning record a couple of years ago. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl a few years ago, and it's been blown out. So don't tell me about Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. They fired a Super Bowl champion coach in Philly. They could fire your ass as well. I want to continue on this list here. Also, we talked with Frank Reich today, and we've got some great news when it comes to Carson Wentz and the Colts. We'll do that next. You keep it here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. your vacation your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Welcome back to the National Football Show, where no wussies are allowed. I'll explain. I'll hit on Carson Wentz here in a second. Finish up. These NFL coaches going into the 2021 season, they better do something this year. Or the fan base and the owners have got to be saying, when are we going to win? But the wussification of America continues by certain people in this country. And I've always said that I hope it stays out of sports. Can't, we got idiots kneeling and people protesting and, whatever. Not that I care because I don't pay attention to that. I don't tune on sports. Like you don't tune on me to sit here and give you political speeches. Oh, you should vote for this guy because I was a water boy for my wife's rugby team over the weekend. Like I'm some expert. Okay? Honestly, be shocked who's on the air who's giving you the advice that you're taking. I think you'd be stunned. Most of these guys didn't even get through community college. Not that that's a bad thing, because it is a great thing that you could go to community college. But some of these guys worked at a 7-Eleven, and you're like, we're a big sports talker or a news talker. Take the vaccine. Oh, no, don't worry. I'm not going there. But the wussification is continuing. And see, what the mainstream media is trying to do is they're trying to get into the sports world. They can't. Why is that? Well, scoreboard. You can't change the scoreboard of a game. See, that's why I was always involved in sports that had a scoreboard and clock. And I didn't want to be involved in a sport that had dudes sitting over there judging on me, because that's politics. It's like a beauty contest. Well, I think that this is kind of why it rubs me wrong a little bit. And I even vote on a very important poll for college football. And I still think that's bad. I want to play it out, man. Make a tournament like the NFL has. What are preseason polls for? Really? Whatever. So the NFL Rules Committee came down with something. I know some of the rules were stupid. We'll get Rich McKay on, who's the chairman of the competition committee. Rich and I have been friends a long time, and Rich is the president of the Atlanta Falcons. He drafted me, actually, when he was the GM of the Bucks. So we've been friends a long time. Yes, his legendary father's John McKay, former Buccaneer and USC head football coach. So now there's a new rule. If you make a play on a receiver, or you're a receiver, you can't get up and you can't jaw with the guy anymore. I want to show you this too. My daughter won a 9th place ribbon at a rugby tournament a couple years ago. She looked over at me. She goes, Dad, it's 9th place. Watch what I do with it. It was one of the greatest moments of my life. My daughter took that 9th place ribbon and threw it in the trash can. I looked over at her and I go, that's one of the greatest things I've ever seen. She's like, Dad, I'm not doing it. I said, right. Nobody wants participation medals. Nobody wants any participation medals. And she goes, because you always tell me, if you make it to the podium, right? You make it to the podium, top 3. Hey, man, you've won. Because the rest of that stuff's all subjective. It's all good if you get to the podium. So the NFL doesn't want any kind of like jawing. They really are the no fun league. So you can't hit receivers. You can't jaw at receivers. You can't hit your lame-ass quarterbacks. Maybe this is coming from a defensive type of guy. But, I mean, really, man, you're just making it so open for all these tool bags to do whatever they want to on the field and make complete asses of themselves. We don't want any kind of celebrating because we don't want anything to show up. Sportsmanship. Okay, what's sportsmanship? You know what sportsmanship is to me? Any means necessary to win a ball game. I don't care what that means. If that means the gray bar line, whatever, I'm there. If that means, here, I'll give you for instance, what offensive linemen do, and you guys can't see it to the sports fans' eye. You know what most offensive linemen do? Here, watch this. Here's an offensive lineman. He puts his hands out like this, right? The referee stands behind him, and he'll stand either over here or over here. So what does the guy do? When he punches out at you like this, and he's punching out, if the ref's over here, he'll take this hand, put it under here, pull you down, and hold you this way. You go over to the ref. Hey, this guy's pulling me down. Do you not see it? Jesus Christ, this guy's got 3 hands on me. One is yours. Can you help me? Ref will go to the other side. He'll even show the hand. He'll start showing hands. He'll punch with this hand. Grab, pull. Same crap. Is that cheating? No. That's gamesmanship to me. Spygate. Gamesmanship. Bountygate. Gamesmanship. Oh, that's right. Wait a minute. I got to do something here. Because some of you can't take that. Yes, there are things that go on in the NFL that aren't above board. Stepping on offensive linemen's hands so they don't grab you. If he gets out of hand, all you do with his hand in the mud, you step on his hands as hard as you can, and you're hoping you break his fingers. Oh, my God, what kind of sportsmanship is that? I think it's the grandest. Yeah, but that's not really sportsmanship. I'm sorry. Do you fight by the Queensberry rules when you're one of these pugilist guys, Hey, no left hand or no rabbit punches. Ali was notorious for hitting people in the back of the head. Clutching and holding and hitting at the same time. He was notorious for it. Mike Tyson was notorious, along with Evander Holyfield, for headbutting. When they're in the clinch, boom. Why do you think they buzz their hair like that? Boom, boom, like sandpaper on your head. They're trying to cut you open. Oh, but that's sportsmanship. Sportsmanship. Oh, because you know why? You know what people like to see at the end of games? Congratulations, great game. You never catch me doing that. Never catch me shaking somebody's hand after a 60-minute ball game if I didn't know you. Now, if somebody comes up to you, you're not going to be a complete tool bag. Hey, man, all right, go good. But most of the guys anyway, you see them in the offseason. Hey, that was a great game we played. Tensions run high after those games. People say crazy things. Sportsmanship. Now you can't bark if you make a good play on somebody. I love that stuff. I don't like it when you're jamming your finger in someone's face and stuff. Okay, then you're crossing again, it's about crossing the line. But you know what the NFL wants to have? They want to have you do this. This sport is a sport played by gladiators, men of sportsmanship. Men who care about the opponent. Men who go about their business to battle for 60 minutes. You think you're listening to John Facenda again, right? And when everyone's like this, here, let me give you a little insight about sportsmanship too. So, when you get ready for a game, I'm going to show you this. I don't know if you know any of this stuff on what NFL players do to this day. So here, get your shoulder pads when you show up to a Sunday and you're showing up, say we'll take the Eagles versus the Cowboys. And I'm Fletcher Cox. I'll show up to the link and there's my shoulder pads all done already. Back in the day, I had to do it, but the equipment guys today do it. You know what they do? So they'll get reversible tape. They'll put it all over your shoulder pads. And what they'll do is they'll put your jersey over it. Then they take Vaseline. So I don't touch your jersey. Put Vaseline all over your jersey. Then they'll spray it with silicone. Now, this is when you don't have it on. You're spraying it yourself, too. So you've got petroleum jelly and you have silicone on it. So when you grab it, you can't grab it. That's why you see a lot of the jerseys now that are up high, because they don't want those old style jerseys any longer where a guy can grab this right here. Here's something else they do. So what Fletcher will do also is he'll put Stickum on his gloves. Bang! When I grab you, gotta pull the front of your jersey right off you, man. Guy like that. I've seen a guy so strong before. I saw a guy pull a face mask off a guy's helmet. You get that Stickum on your hand with some of these guys that are big-time beasts, guys that are 590-pound benchers or 600-pound benchers like Big Sills. Man, I pulled the front of a jersey right off a guy before. Grabbed him, bam! Yanked that thing right off him. So, gamesmanship. But we want to have the perception. The point is I'm making here, they changed the rule for perception so everyone will think the league is thinking about, character and all this other stuff. I like the jawing. I like the barking. There are so many things. By the way, if it gets a little rainy, hey, maybe I'll cheat and I'll do the 2-inch cleats. Referee, come over to you and go change those cleats. How many times I've had that happen to me? A bunch of hey, those cleats are too high. Change them, please. Why? The league doesn't like to. I don't know why, but we have to change them if they're too high. Like 1.5 inches, I think, is the most you can play with. Yeah. The league used to have rules like this. They used to have rules where you would be fined $50 if your socks fell down. And they used to give us bibs that if your shirt came out, it was another $50 fine. So they gave you a bib that connected to your jersey and it went through your legs and you had to have that bib on. That's why when you see this stuff going on with these superficial rule changes like this, don't talk trash. Oh, it's just a wussification of America. It really is, dude. It is. It just do everything above board and sportsmanlike. Holy cow, man. All right, where was I? Okay, so Cliff Kingsbury, we're talking about coaches. And we went through, I said McCarthy of Dallas. I said Matt Nagy of Chicago Bears, Zach Taylor, Cincinnati, Cliff Kingsbury. These are going to be some of the guys that are going to be on the firing squad when it comes to coaches that could be actually picked off as we go through the season or maybe even after the season when it comes to not getting the job done with their respective teams. I'm going to throw this at you too. Do I think Joe Judge in New York is in trouble? I don't think so. And all you're hearing is people in New York going, oh, man, Joe, he's got the pulse of the team that he did not. Phil Simms yesterday came out and completely has the back of Joe Judge. This guy's got it, man. He's a good – yeah, you know what, though, dude? Phil, you got to win, man. You got to win in New York. That NFC East, you've got to win. Look at what they did with Riverboat Ron Rivera. Ron came in his first year, he won a division title. That's the impact you're looking at when you come into that division. You don't think people are going to be looking at Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia? I mean, look, rock, paper, scissors wasn't a fine start for the guy. Not that I care about that. But he knows it too going into Philly. This ain't going into Tennessee. You're going into an NFC East team, the Tiffany division of the NFL. You think the NFL wants that division looking the way it does right now? That division is the worst division, and yet it's the most visual division and highest rated division in television. And it can't keep sucking like that. You got the highest paid player in it. I don't know that's going to change the dynamics of that division, but you got to perform in that division. It's not the NFC South. It's not the AFC North. It's the NFC East. All the major population of the country is in that neck of the woods there. Big ratings, big brands. Can't stink like this. So Joe Judge, I don't know. I say this. How many years? What's this? How many years has he been there? 2? I don't. Who is he? Oh, that's right. He came from New England. Vic Fangio in Denver is another one of these dudes. Bro, this guy, man. I mean, it's not really on Fangio. I think that it's been on John Elway. They just haven't got the quarterback spot right. And for the record, John really hasn't got the quarterback spot right outside of Peyton Manning landing in there. The Paxton Lynches of the world, the Brock Osweilers of the world, those guys that he's drafted, this kid Drew Lock, he sucks too. They have not gotten that position right. And you would think with a dude like John Elway, you're going to kind of fall into somebody in this stuff. Now you got Teddy Bridgewater in the room, and you're doing this. Teddy Bridgewater, Drew Lock. All right, I don't know. Is that going to save his gig? Highly doubtful. You could see this guy in week 8 getting blown out. All right. News of the day. I had a great conversation because I called Frank Reich up this morning. I wanted to check on my friend to see if he's okay as we're getting word now that he's getting out of the COVID-19 protocols and everything's cool. You know, he had systematic symptoms and they put him in the protocol stages of COVID-19. And I asked him how the team's doing and how everybody's looking. By the way, here's the news. They're not going to make any move whatsoever. They're not going after Nick Foles. They're not going to go and do anything to bring Phillip Rivers in. Jacob Eason is in the conversation in there. Okay, the kid that they drafted. I mean, he looks okay. But quite frankly, they're not really doing anything. I think they got the kid from Texas in there too. I think that's what Frank said, that Effinger kid that played at Texas. I think that's how you say his name. He was drafted late. People thought maybe he would go in the top 3 rounds. He didn't. So again, they're just going by committee here. Now here's what we're hearing. Carson Wentz's rehab and where he is right now, they're saying he's going to be ready for week 1. You know, they were initially talking about him coming back in week 6. Now we're being told that he may be coming back for week 1 and the start of the NFL season. That is great news for the Colts, and it's great news for the Eagles. Remember what's all wrapped around Carson Wentz. I know that this doesn't want to resonate with many of the idiots who are Eagle fans, but if that guy does well, you do well. Maybe you could go get Deshaun Watson with 2 number 1s then. 70% of the games, if he makes it to the playoffs, 75% of the games, percentage of plays, if he plays during the regular season, it turns to a 1. That's a big deal, man. That's a big deal. Now, you would be picking between 15 and 22, somewhere in there. Still a 1. And personally, I don't think the Eagles this year are going to win 6 ball games. I just don't. I don't see it. I mean, Could they split with every team in the NFC? Yeah, they could. Could they beat? Yeah, they could beat Dallas. I just don't have a lot of faith in Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was not signed and not drafted to be a starting quarterback in this league. He was drafted to be a seatbelt. The Eagles are looking for his replacement as I'm talking. So if you get a one out of that deal, another one, and you got 2 ones, maybe you could pry away with a player and maybe a later draft pick, 3rd, 4th rounder, maybe. Because I'll tell you what, the stuff they have on the table now is not going to inspire the Houston Texans to move Deshaun Watson to Philadelphia. The only reason you're in the conversation is because of those sexual harassment cases. That's it. Or the teams would be Carolina, Miami, Denver. It wouldn't be you. And someone was telling me the other day, well, what if they threw Jalen? The Houston Texans don't want Jalen Hurts. They would much rather have, if they were going to look at taking a player, they would look at Sam Darnold, who was a 1, and they would look at Tagovailoa. They wouldn't look at Jalen. Why would I do that when I also could get more number 1s out of Miami? Miami wants him. Miami wants Deshaun Watson. So, back to Wentz. That's great news for Frank. By the way, today, we heard also, and Frank was really just pleased with the Ursays, that they extended him, and they also extended the general manager, Chris Ballard, this day. And I believe it goes out to 2025. I think that's what Frank said, that his contract now has been extended to. It's pretty good stuff, man. Because you know why? As soon as Frank Reich is available, he's your next head coach in Philly. The owner loves him. How the hell do you think Sirianni got into Philadelphia? How do you think Wentz got into Indy? That relationship between the owner and the head coach. All of that is the dynamic. You can go back and listen to the interview we did with Frank Reich right here on the National Football Show, too. So we talked with the coach. The coach is saying that Carson Wentz is going to play week 1. That's what we're scheduling ourselves for. We're on track for that. His rehab is coming well. He's moving around already. And it looks like he's going to play either week 1 or 2. He's saying week 1. I just threw week 2 out. I find it hard to believe that he's going to be ready to rock and roll for the upcoming opener for the Indianapolis Colts. All right, we'll take a brief timeout. And we will talk about what we saw a little bit more on Hard Knocks last night. I thought it was really great. And there was one part of it that was really great. I'll tell you what that was next, right here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Ken just asked me how many quarters should Jalen Hurts play. How about all 4? Dan Sileo, National Football Show. How about all 4? That guy needs as many reps as he can possibly get. Okay? He doesn't get, well, you know, Aaron Rodgers, we're not going to play you. He doesn't get that latitude. What equity has he built up? Did you not watch that Washington game? Bro, you need as many reps as you can get. I'm not saying you're going to play him 4 quarters, but I'm kidding in that. But how many quarters should he play? How many quarters how about this? Let me throw that back at people. How many quarters do you think Jalen Hurts should play? 3? 2? To get the guy into a rhythm? Well, you can't play him because, you know, you don't want to get him hurt. Who cares? Well, then we really don't have anybody. How do you know you have anybody? You keep making it sound like you have somebody. All you have now is a body. Well, he's a 2. Oh, okay. And Brady was a 6. You ever hear like of overdrafting? How many people, watch this. If you had to redraft Jalen Hurts and put him back in the NFL draft, what round would you take him? 5? You'd never get the value of a 2. And they traded up to get the kid. What do you think you would get for him if you put him out there in the open market right now? What do you think you'd get for him? Watch this. I still think you get a 1 for Wentz, and you did. And maybe 2. Look at all the picks that Detroit got for stupid Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff did win an NFC championship. Let's not forget that. Dak Prescott's never done that. Right? He's never done that. How many quarters should he play? As of right now, you got to do it. By the way, before I get into Dak Prescott here, I want to throw this out at you here. So I did release my, make sure there's no phone numbers on this. My top 16 power rankings. Oh, you can't see that. So you have to go over to my Twitter feed. It's the FWA, the Football Writers of America Association, and the National Football Foundation. Okay, each year they're involved in picking the national champion. And I'm on the committee here, and I'm on the panel to pick Power 16. The eventual Power 16 that the committee votes on takes this poll here, and they factor it in on what we do all year. And I vote each week. This is the preseason, I believe. Yeah. For the upcoming season that we have coming up in a couple weeks. You know what I do love about this? My boy Krause and everybody's going to love this. Let's see how many guys have come on the show so far in the top 16. Miami of Florida's Manny Diaz, 1. Ed Ogeron is 13, 2. Oregon, Mario Cristobal, there's 3. He's 11. And Clemson, number 1, Dabo Swinney. 4 guys in the top 16 have already been on the National Football Show. How you doing? And you're welcome. Yeah. Okay, how many shows do you know around the country can get that on? And the number 1 team in the country. Some would say, you don't have Bama number 1? No, not until Nick comes on. He promised me, man, but he wasn't able to make it. So Ryan Day, 2. Lincoln Riley, he's working on it. But Lincoln Riley asked me and begged me, nothing to do with Philly, please. It's a bullshit story anyway. Anyway, so let's get into Dak here. So I really loved watching him last night. Boy, I tell you, the Cowboys are throwing him out front and center, are they not? As the face of the franchise. The Cowboys do such a great job at marketing that football team. They do. How many times now is this for Jerry Jones and his Cowboys? 3, 4 times they've been on Hard Knocks now? Man, that brand is so big. It's so great of an organization. I loved working for him. I loved playing for him. It's a lot of fun in that building. But it's got to come down to stop doing this. Guys, stop being TV stars and start being NFL football stars. When you're a member of the Cowboys, it seems today, it's more important to act like Mike McCarthy in front of a camera. Jerry's actually probably the only genuine dude because Jerry's always been like that. But these Cowboy guys, I'm just wondering, it just seems to me that it's more important for these players to be a Dallas Cowboy than it is to win ball games. I mean, eventually, the Cowboys have to have a come-to-Jesus conversation when we're doing this. You haven't been to an NFC championship game in 25 years. You've won 3 playoff games in 25 years. Hell, when I hear Tony Romo talking and he's working with Nance, I would swear he was Troy Aikman and had Troy Aikman's resume. And then you look up and go, wait a minute, that guy's got 2 playoff wins. Tony Romo has 2 playoff wins in his 17 years. And when that guy's talking, I do this. Why am I listening to a guy that had no success whatsoever in playing in the postseason? And he sounds like he's Troy Aikman. When I listen to Troy, I'm like, Troy won 3 Super Bowls, played in iconic games against the 49ers, and was in massive games against the New York Giants. And when the NFC East was a bitch. Dude, those Giants and Washington, Cowboy games, those Eagle teams, all during that era were great. That was big pants, big boy football when you played in the East when that Aikman team was rolling through it. Remember, it started with Buddy and Bounty Gate and all that and putting bounties on people. And that was a notorious. Jerome Brown knew it. Those things were real, man. Those were fun times. That division was dynamite and tough. Couldn't get through that division without someone getting broken up. That was a significant piece to a team's success. I mean, how many times you see teams getting broken up in that division because they lost a quarterback, running back, or wideout? That's when that division was at its best. It really, that thing was really great, man. It was a great division. So, end of the day, man, make no mistake about it. The Cowboys have to start winning ball games here. They got to start winning. And Jerry, last night I'm watching the thing and I'm like, man, it's like TV stars. These guys are all about these guys are all about just being on TV. It's got to be about winning ball games eventually. It's got to be about producing. All right. Hour 2, we're going to catch up with our friend Howard Balzer. I brought up Cliff Kingsbury, too. I want to get his thoughts on what he saw with the Hall of Fame. I also want to get his thoughts a little bit on what's going on in San Francisco. We're going to hit back up on that again, too. Also, a little bit more on Carson Wentz. Another story that came out when I was talking to Frank Reich today. We'll do all that next. Hour 2's coming up. You keep it right here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Hour 2, welcome back to the National Football Show. Your boy Dan Sileo. Yeah, I just retweeted out if you go over to @Dan Sileo Show, JAKIB Media. Carson Wentz will play week 1, according to Frank. They're rolling towards week 1. Many people, including myself, I was saying more like 6 and 7. That was the initial diagnosis. And if you remember right, 2 Fridays ago, we were the ones that broke the story that he was going to go under the knife. Obviously, the rehab is going better than what people had thought, and his recovery is coming along. It's always great when you're young like that. Okay, this is one of the things that really stops the veteran guys from coming back, because when you're in your early 20s, recovery is just like, it's like that. You're able, like my rookie year in the NFL, I had a knee scope and I had to get a piece of cartilage taken out of my knee. I played that Sunday. I got hurt later in my career. I was up in Canada, and I got hurt later in my career. Man, it took 3 weeks to get back from that. It's just, your body just takes that time and needs that time as you get older. So Yeah, man. By the way, Howard Balzer will join us from Sports Illustrated. He's a Pro Football Hall of Fame voter. He will be at the bottom of the hour. We will go all around. We'll ask him about Carson Wentz. Looks like now he's going to go week 1 of the NFL season. You know, it's funny. I get asked questions all the time, especially because we have an affiliation with the great folks in Philadelphia, our channel, our show here. And I get asked the question about Hurts all the time. What do you make of him? And I've told people, I think he is a great kid. I think he had a spectacular college football career. But so did Tim Tebow. You know, so did Tim Tebow. So did Tommy Frazier. You know? So did some of the great players in the history of college football. Have Charlie Ward, who we had on yesterday. I think Charlie Ward, if I'm not mistaken, was 24-1, won a Heisman and a national championship. That doesn't mean you're going to translate that into a NFL career. Now, do I think Jalen Hurts is a tomato can? No. I don't. But I think you have to understand the culture of that building. Did you not watch what happened at the end of the year when they yanked him and put some nobody nothing in at the end of the game, at the end of the year, where that kid could have got critical playing time, and they yanked him? Don't you think that would have been he needs, I was just telling Ken here, who's following along with us here, Jalen Hurts needs as much playing time as he can feasibly get. So when you're talking about the exhibition season here, I mean, your head coach came out 3 days ago and said, we're not there yet on naming him the starter for the year. And fast forward 3 days, he's still not there. Now, am I saying Joe Flacco's going to beat this kid out? Highly unlikely. But I guarantee you this, Nick Sirianni feels more comfortable with a veteran quarterback. Who was he dealing with last year? He was dealing with a guy like Phillip Rivers. I'm going to tell you guys something once again about quarterbacking. And this is why Jalen Hurts is still in kindergarten. When you're a quarterback in that league, there are so many other intangibles besides your drop, besides finding the receiver. It's about knowing every single position on the field. Let me tell you something. If you ever get a chance to go and watch, you know, the NFL did that top 100 players of all time, and they did the top 100 players in the history of the sport. And they had Ed Reed, Peyton Manning, Bill Belichick, all in the same room. And get this. This is what we're talking about, how far behind Jalen is and what he's got to learn to play the position. By the way, Mahomes is probably a little bit ahead of Jalen, but he's just a God gift. God put his hand on Patrick Mahomes' shoulder, and that kid's a special player. He's the best quarterback talent I've ever seen. And he's still learning the position, which is scary. But just to give you insight on what a quarterback has to know when he goes into a game. This is out of Peyton Manning's mouth, and I'm paraphrasing it here. Manning had been watching game film, because you got to remember, Colts and Ravens, that was a pretty good rivalry during Peyton's time, right? Ed Reed, in my opinion, is the greatest safety that's ever played in pro football history. Not only was he a tremendous safety, he was a tremendous special teams player. He was a tremendous special teams player in college. He's one of the greatest college football players. Ed Reed's one of the greatest football players that's ever put a pair of cleats on at any level. And that's just not me talking because he's a Hurricane. He's the greatest safety that's ever played. And it's not just because of the great gifts he has physically, but it was this stuff and how smart he was. So he's watching 3 games of Ed Reed and how Ed Reed covers a seam pass. Ed knew that Peyton was going to be watching the last 3 games on how Ed covered the seam pass. So you know what he did? He decoyed him. In the game previous playing the Colts, and he decoyed him lining up in a different position. And when Peyton saw him, he said there's no way he's getting there. He immediately sprinted there to the spot that Peyton was going to throw the ball, because remember, Peyton didn't have the strongest arm on the planet. He did everything by preparation almost. And you can see on the game film, and you could see it on the clip, Peyton going like this. Damn. And when those two guys got in the room together, Peyton goes like this. You set me up from the previous game when you guys were playing the Titans, didn't you? He goes, yeah, because I knew you'd be watching the film, and you knew that's how I covered the seam pass. What I was going to do was give you a disguise coverage, and we disguise coveraged it, knowing that I'd have help over the top with the corner if you did decide to go to the opposite side of the field and you didn't see your guy open. And so he set him up. Quarterbacks have to know all the positions on the field and your responsibilities. When you're in college, you don't need to know any of that. You don't need to have any of that. But Reed was so brilliant and so smart a player. He used to set these quarterbacks up because when you play against Tom Brady, you think lining up just in a normal 43 defense or 34 defense, that's going to be good enough to beat Tom Brady. If you think that, you're out of your mind. And where I'm going with Jalen is this. The little game film that they got on him last year, what do you think coordinators see in him? He's not very accurate, and his completion percentage was around 51%. Okay? What are they going to do to him? Well, they're going to bring pressure, and they're going to move him around, and they're going to move him off a spot. He's a spot quarterback right now. And what a spot quarterback is this. Every quarterback has a spot. When you played against Kurt Warner, get him off his – Monty Kiffin taught me this, the former defensive coordinator for the Buccaneers. Get him off his spot. Jimmy Johnson too, man. Dave Wannstedt, all these guys. Getting a quarterback off his spot. Kurt Warner loved to go to his right, stand. Warner hated going to his left. He couldn't really do it. Jay Cutler couldn't go to his left. Marino hated moving around in the pocket. Every quarterback has a particular spot in the pocket that they want to get to. Very rarely do you have people win ball games out of the pocket. You could maybe win regular season games, but you're not going to win against those high-powered defenses and those technically sound defenses. That's why Lamar Jackson struggles in the second season. It's because those coordinators are usually with the best units and with the best corners and free safeties. And there's a pass rusher usually on that team. So Jalen, I mean, again, fans sit back and they go, hey, this guy's got to be better than Wentz. That doesn't necessarily mean, are you saying he's more athletically gifted? That could easily well be. I don't believe that. But when you play that position in the league, man, you've got to know every position on your football team. And I'm talking about your offense. And when you're scouting the defense that you're playing, let's just hypothetically do this, okay? Check it out now. So this is what Jalen's going to be facing in week 1 against, I believe it's Atlanta, right? New head football coach, which means a new scheme. That may play into his favor. Because why? Well, the defensive guys that are in Atlanta, they're still trying to figure out what the hell is being asked of them too. And so when you change new schemes, this is what hurt Dallas last year. They went from a 43 front to a 34 front, not having the personnel. And when you hired a guy in a fossil like Mike Nolan and you put that guy in the room, you're automatically going to put him at a deficit because you don't have the personnel, because you don't have a pass rusher. Randy Gregory and Alden Smith, that's not going to quite cut it when you're talking about trying to get to a quarterback. They didn't have the personnel to go to a 43. They didn't have the personnel to go to a 34. 3 front, 4 linebackers. I don't want to sound too technical to you, but that's why when people ask me questions all the time about quarterbacking, and do you think this guy can play it out, and do you think this guy can can end up really being a good player. I don't know. I have to see guys getting better mentally every year. It's not so much about the physicalness on you getting better. Now watch this. Here's another guy. Now let's see what Justin Herbert. And I'll say this to you too. In defense of Tua Tagovailoa in Miami, the one thing Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow did before Joe Burrow got hurt in Cincinnati last year, what was the big advantage that those guys had? They were always throwing from behind. You were never really playing quarterback when you're winning games or you're in games versus playing quarterback when you're out of games and you're constantly chasing. I mean, those numbers and those yards and those touchdowns, if you're 4-12 and you've been chasing a team and teams in the NFL all year long, those numbers are hollow. Like they were with Dak Prescott until he got hurt. Those numbers were hollow. You were still 1-4. And you had a miraculous come from behind win against Atlanta last year. All of those numbers, they didn't matter. So when Herbert now is going to be expected to win, you're not going to be sitting back throwing the ball 50 times a game. Every defense is going to dictate what you can do and what you can't do. And again, this is all about the process of learning the position. Now, look at the Eagles again when you're talking about Jalen and what he has. Devontae Smith, he's got to figure it out. Oh, and by the way, those wide open spaces that he was running around in college? They ain't going to be there. I don't care what you think. They're not going to be there. Well, he's a spectacular. Haas, okay. Spectacular? Really? You're in the league of spectacular. Every player that's in the league is spectacular. Okay? I mean, well, he's nothing yet. Well, maybe. Well, yeah, maybe. That's like Jimmy Johnson said at his Hall of Fame induction speech. I'm not a dreamer. Okay? I'm not a dreamer here. I look at things and we try to make it happen right now. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what he does because every coordinator now, and to your point, I'd play him as much as I could without endangering what I'm trying to accomplish in the exhibition season. You don't want to throw him out there and get him killed in the first exhibition game because exhibition games 1-4 usually don't matter. But he's behind. He's not your starter. He's working to be your starter. When you have somebody like Tom Brady or you have somebody like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson, that's a different conversation. You don't have that guy in Philadelphia. Hell, you don't have that guy in New York. You know what? You have that guy in Washington. If I was on the Washington team, I'd be doing this. I'm pretty comfortable with the guy we have. He's going to at least give us a shot to win ball games. Ryan Fitzpatrick could do this any given weekend. He could throw for 5 touchdowns or 5 picks. That's who he is. And when he's hot and streaky, man, this guy's Eli Manning streaky. Okay? Everybody always looks at Eli and goes, well, he was a really good quarterback. Guy was 117-1 as a starting quarterback in the NFL. This guy with a 500 record. He's got 2 rings. Yeah, so does Jim Plunkett. All right. I've got to hit on this. I was talking to the guys before we went on the air. I want to show you about wasted talent here. By the way, our friend Howard Balzer, we're going to talk to him from Sports Illustrated, also our Hall of Fame voter. Alden Smith, who was on the Cowboys last year, and I looked it up. I couldn't believe these numbers. Do you remember this guy when he was with San Francisco? I think his first year he had 19 sacks. Then the next year he had 16 sacks. This guy had 35.5 sacks his first 2 years in the league. He was on pace to be Reggie White, and he was on pace to be like Bruce Smith. Fast forward, he missed 4 years because of conduct issues. Now the Seahawks are going to fire him. Alden Smith started 53 games in his NFL career. I think he's played in like 70 of them. And in those 53 starts, he's got 52.5 sacks. There's only 2 other men that have basically had a sack in every single game that they've ever played in. Mark Gastineau and Reggie White. And this guy here is the John Jones of the NFL. He can't grow up. This dude here, man, you talk about ultimate train wreck. This is, every time I see talent like this, he's a great pass rusher. I think he signed a 1-year deal with Seattle. And Pete Carroll wanted it. All these coaches want to give him a chance. He just can't be trusted. That's now where, and by the way, I'm going to make a comparison to a guy that if he's watching, I pray to God he is. There's two guys right now currently, and Alden Smith and Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is straightening his life out because he's got a mentor in Tom Brady. Alden Smith doesn't want to listen to anybody. Alden Smith has decided to light his career and put it up in flames. There's not a football team, I'm promising you, there's not a football team in America that would not want this guy. I personally think Alden Smith is better than Jadeveon Clowney. Jadeveon Clowney has never had a double-digit sack year in his entire professional career. Do you know that? I've always said this about Jadeveon. The poster's a little bit better than the actual player. Those movie posters that you throw out? The movie never really lived up to the billing. Because whenever I look at Jadeveon Clowney, this guy's always barking for $20 million. But then I turn around and I go like this. You've never had a 10-sack year in your entire career? That speaks volumes for me. This guy, Alden Smith, had 35 sacks in 2 years coming out of the gate. This guy's got a sack every game he ever started. It's crazy. It's crazy great. Crazy great. All right. We talked a little bit about Hard Knocks. We also talked a little bit about some of the coaches that are on the hot seat. I'm going to go around the horn. Plus, my friend Howard Balzer was in Canton this past weekend. We'll get his overall thoughts on what he saw this past weekend. Also, the first exhibition weekend is coming up. We'll talk with our Hall of Fame insider, our Hall of Fame voter insider, Howard Balzer, next right here on the National Football Show.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 to 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at IBEW98.org.
field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Dan Sileo, National Football Show. Let's see everybody jump aboard. It's really cool. Football season, isn't it? The heat. Really? By the way, my daughter's practicing right now for her upcoming D1, Division I rugby season at Grand Canyon University. She's going to be playing against Arizona, Arizona State, USC, UCLA, Brigham Young, all that. She's tremendous, one of the top rugby players in the country. And she's like, Jesus, Dad, it's really hot. I go, yeah. Well, you're playing in Arizona. It's going to be about 120 degrees. She's like, man. I said, know this. When other teams come to your building, they're going to be completely saying, oh, man, also. But they're not going to be used to it. Take it as an advantage. One of the greatest advantages we had at the University of Miami was, I have never, and by the way, it's clearly a young guy's sport because 98 humidity, 98 temperature, and when you're in Miami, it is without a doubt. And when I did my training with the Buccaneers too, I mean it. I don't know how I got through all that. I did 3-a-days, 2-a-days. Let me see. I played 6 years of football in the state of Florida. Oh, wait. Counting the World League? I played 8 years of my football, some college and pro, in the state of Florida. And I will tell you, there ain't nothing like it. 98 humidity, 98 temperature, and you're going out there, man. And I'll tell you something. I remember our coaches, Coach Jimmy Johnson, Galen Hall, Ray Perkins, all of them saying this. When these teams come, that thermometer goes through the roof, that humidity's cooking, you walk out there and you're like, oh, bitch, this is going to be hard. Those teams by the fourth quarter were out of gas. And that's one of the reasons why we laid it on them too. We just mowed teams over because we practiced and lived in that every day. I don't know how to, you know what? To the advantage of the Buffalo Bills. I always said this about the Minnesota Vikings. I did. I think when they put the top on the stadium in Minnesota, I think they took one of the greatest home field advantages away. You go up to Buffalo in November and December. You go up to Green Bay and play a game in November and December, and you're not used to that kind of cold, man, I'll tell you what, feel like your fingers are falling off when you get hit. You know, you roll up there. My first time going up to Lambeau, man, it was 20 below. I'm like, Jesus criminy. You got to be kidding me, man. You got to be kidding me. By the way, you know, I talked a little bit about my top 16. Before we get to Howard Balzer here are my top 16 teams in the country from my preseason poll. By the way, Howard's ready now. We'll do that after we talk to our good friend Howard Balzer and get his thoughts on what's going on this upcoming NFL season. I first have to start. You know what I love the most? Last week, I go to Howard. I go like this. Howard, hey, man, you got a couple minutes for me? He goes, excuse me, I'm in Canton. And I'm like, I'm in Canton now. And, hey, just give me your overall thoughts, Howard, how that whole thing went last week.
It was phenomenal. I mean, and this year even, I mean, it's the thing I look forward to quite honestly, every year. And it's one of the favorite things that I do every year, not only going, but doing shows for Sirius. And of course, they had the moniker this year, Twice the Fun in 21. And every year I do a show for Sirius on Saturday leading into the enshrinement with Vic Carucci from Buffalo, another Hall of Fame selector. And so this year we had Twice the Fun because we had a show on Sunday also. And so what we do is we tape interviews with Hall of Famers on Thursday and Friday and play them during the show. And I also did my regular Pro Football Hall of Fame radio show. We interviewed 18 different Hall of Famers. I added it up. And that of the players, we also interviewed Ron Wolf, the contributor, Tom Flores. But of the players that we interviewed, a total of 237 years of experience in the NFL. But what also made it so special, and you can see it in the guys coming back especially, how glad they were to be back after, of course, not having it last year. And so it's just a tremendous, tremendous weekend. I did a weekend show that I normally do. I counted up, Dan, I think I did from Thursday through Sunday, I did 11 and a half hours of radio, which isn't that much, but that doesn't include all the taping of the interviews during the day, Thursday and Friday. So it's just tremendous. It was a little extra special for myself personally because of Isaac Bruce going in. I was able to go to his party on Saturday night and able to see so many people I hadn't seen in so long. So I'll have to say it was like triple the fun in 21 that that I experienced, and so many others did too. It's just a great weekend that people should try to experience at least. It should be on everybody's bucket list. Let's just put it that way.
Howard, do you think that as the Hall of Famers get more removed from the year that they get inducted into the Hall of Fame, that they appreciate the fact that they are a select group? I saw the number and I heard the number that Chris Berman said that there's only been 780 some odd players that have ever played in the NFL over 101 years. And there's only 17,000 of us alive that have ever played in that game. And then you have that select group of a little bit over 300 guys who have been selected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Do you think it becomes more of a deal to them as they get more removed from the date and the year that they were inducted?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think they grow in that appreciation every year. And there's one event during the week, Dan, or during the long weekend, if you will, from Thursday through Sunday, that isn't publicized very much because it's totally private. And it's called the Nichky Luncheon. And it was begun when Ray Nichky was in the Hall of Fame. And it's continued through the years with Deacon Jones being the guy who kind of orchestrates it. Then after he passed, it's been Willie Lanier. And what they do is they have an exclusive luncheon that nobody else is allowed in it except for the Hall of Famers. And that includes the new players coming in. And they're not allowed to talk. They stay silent. But the Hall of Famers, whoever wants to speak, can and does. And people I talked to, and we talked about this in some of our interviews Friday afternoon after the luncheon, they said this was one of the best luncheons ever because that feeling of being there, of this fraternity, this team, the new team that everybody's on, and they communicated that to the guys coming in, just how special this is. And so it just grows year by year. Guys appreciate it more. And I'll tell you one thing, Andre Reed, who we talked to, the wide receiver from the Buffalo Bills, and he talked about how as you get further and further away from the disappointment in your career when you get to the Super Bowl 4 years in a row but don't win, there's more, you gain more of an appreciation for still just that accomplishment of getting there 4 years in a row. And obviously you would have liked to have that ring, you would have liked to won, but that was a pretty incredible accomplishment getting there 4 years in a row. And he said that every year you appreciate that even more. So it's like I said, it's just a tremendous weekend.
Before I get into some modern day news, I do want to throw this out at you. Of all the Hall of Famers on Saturday and Sunday that had their speeches, the one that blew me away the most was Harold Carmichael. I thought he was in 10 years ago. I mean, I was telling my wife, I go, if that guy played in today's game, you couldn't cover him. This guy was uncoverable back then. I think he had like over 100 games in a row where he caught a pass or something nutty like that.
Yeah,
and,
it was a record at the time.
He was just an absolute freak of nature on the field, and I thought that was cool. That was on the Veterans Committee, right? Am I right that they ended up selecting him, or was that a blue ribbon?
Yeah, that was a blue ribbon committee. He was part of the 10 seniors that went in that class that would have been enshrined last year.
Let me ask you this question, final question on the weekend. You think Dick Vermeil belongs in the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
I think he definitely does. And I'll say I'm biased because I was there with him in St. Louis and covering him and have gotten to know him. And there's no better human being, much less a football coach. But when you look at what he accomplished with 3 different franchises, taking over one team, the Eagles, that had just over a 30% winning percentage for the previous 9 years, turned the culture around, and in the 3rd year made the playoffs, and then 2 years later was in the Super Bowl. Then he gets burned out in 82, leaves coaching for broadcasting, comes back 14 years later with the Rams, who in the previous 7 years had a winning percentage of a little bit over 30%, and in the 3rd year has them in the Super Bowl. Then he retires, which he regrets to this day, comes back the year after leaving the Rams, and goes to Kansas City. Now, the Chiefs weren't as bad as the Eagles and the Rams, but they were kind of less than 500. They were just average at best. And in the 3rd year there, he has them almost to the Super Bowl and losing just a crazy playoff game to the Indianapolis Colts and Peyton Manning. So here's the thing about it. When you look at his overall record, you see a winning percentage of about 520. However, if you add up just the winning percentage, Dan, from his 3rd year on at all 3 of his stops, the winning percentage is over 65%. So that, to me, shows building a team. I mean, you look at, Tom Flores, deserving. He took over a Raiders team that had been winning. Bill Cowher takes over Steelers teams that have been winning. And so here's a guy that took over 3 franchises that weren't winning and turned them totally around and into winners. So I don't think there's any doubt that he deserves to be in. I think it'll happen in the next couple of years now that they have a separate coach committee. And that finalist, by the way, will be named on August 24th for the 2022 class. And Dick and there's other great coaches on that list, whether you like Mike Holmgren or Dan Reeves or Tom Coughlin, whatever it might be. But Dick turns 85 in October. And I think that would be a nice thing for the coach committee to, especially if it's close. I'm not advocating, hey, put in guys, because they're old and who knows how long they'll be around. But if it's close and it's between one guy and another, go with that. Because the worst thing that can happen is when, as we've seen in the past, when you're enshrining guys who have passed on.
I think he's a complete Hall of Famer. And, and I'm not throwing shade on anybody that's in, like you said. I had Coach Flores on, and I've been an advocate for him to make it to Hall of Fame, or a Bud Grant and those kind of guys. I know they got to Super Bowls, but you're going to try to tell me, and even Marty Schottenheimer to some extent too, 200-plus wins in his fabulous career. I would say this. I mean, man, Vermeil, I mean, he's truly one of the greatest coaches during my lifetime that's ever been in the league. So there's no question I think he belongs. I want to get to coaching.
Real quick, Schottenheimer turned franchises around too.
Yeah.
The thing that happened is he didn't have that great success in the postseason. And I think that's unfortunate when we lay so much on that. I realize obviously how important it is to win. But when you're in the playoffs, you're playing the best teams. There's no 4-12 teams that you're playing in the postseason. All the best are playing against each other. And it shouldn't be looked at as shameful or I think a knock on someone's career because they happen to lose in the playoffs many times to the team that goes on and wins the Super Bowl. Absolutely.
John Madden didn't have the greatest postseason record. If you look at it, I mean, got beat. Then again, he was in an era of the Steelers.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
Dolphins.
Exactly.
I mean, so, hey, let me ask you about a guy in your neck of the woods. And is this fair to say Cliff Kingsbury is the worst coach in the NFC West? That's not that bad a deal, but are we looking at him potentially having a little bit of heat on him this year that he's got to win to Steve Keim and those guys? I mean, you're all connected together when you make a move and you hire a coach like this. Are these guys all under the watchful eye of the Bidwells this year?
I think they could be, and they expect to be better. But the obvious point is that is a very difficult division. And heck, the reality with the 49ers, and I know they had you can always use the injury thing, but they did get to the Super Bowl the one year when they had Jimmy Garoppolo healthy, but the other years have not been successful. Sean McVeigh, I mean, this is a huge year, I think, for him, because it was only 2 years ago, Dan, that he said, Jared Goff will be my quarterback as long as I'm here. And they invested huge money in him and then traded the one speed threat they had on the team that helped them get to the Super Bowl, and that was Brandon Cooks. And then all of a sudden, after 2 seasons that weren't great, all of a sudden Jared Goff can't throw it down the field, but he didn't have anybody to throw it down the field to. So now they bring in Matthew Stafford without much of a running game, especially after the injury to Cam Akers, and they don't have a downfield threat unless anyone really believes that Deshaun Jackson can give them 16 games, which he hasn't been able to do for the last couple of years. And I believe he's 35. So there's a certain amount of pressure there for the boy wonder that gets all these accolades and obviously did have a lot of success coming out of the box. But with Goff and with Todd Gurley, who was a big part of that early success when he got there. And then when they made the changes on the offensive line that really improved them, I'm not totally sold on their line either. So I think this is going to be very interesting, I think, to see if the Rams can come close to living up to the expectations. But, back to Arizona, yeah, there's always pressure on head coaches. But here's the thing. Kingsbury comes in after a 3-win season, which got him the first pick in the draft, and they improved to 5, and then last year they improved to 8. Last year, the feeling, though, it should have been better because halfway through the season, it looked like they were probably going to be in the playoffs, and they finished poorly. So they've tried to make the moves that they think will keep that from happening this year, but it's easy to talk about. You got to go out in the field and do it. But if they're a better team, and he's so not inexplicably, but intertwined with Kyler Murray, that if Murray still has a good year and maybe they win 9, maybe they're 9-8, they don't get into the postseason. But I don't know that you would necessarily want to change when Murray has shown the growth that he has, assuming he continues to have that growth this season.
I want to expand a little bit on what you're saying here, Howard, and I think it's important for everyone to hear what you're saying here, because like you said with Mcveigh, we'll stay in the NFC West here. I mean, his first year as coordinator / head coach, they're number 1 in offense. Second year, they're number 2. Very good. You're doing great. Talking Super Bowl. You get in there, you get out coached by Belichick. So be it. Third year, you fall to 11. All right. You're around 11 now. You're outside the top 10. Last year, you're 22. And I do think that the reason that Jared Goff was moved is because Sean McVay started seeing, hey, my job security light here and my pilot light could be going out here, because you make a trade for a guy that Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton have a better win percentage than. And not saying that Stafford is not in a horrible scenario in Detroit. You bring his butt there. And the other guy up north did the same thing. Outside of having Jimmy Garoppolo is 24, I think it is, 24, 23, and 8 when he's on the field. Other than that, he's got a losing record as the head coach of the 49ers. They moved up to 3 because I think Kyle Shanahan started seeing the same thing you did, where they went like this. I got to make a move at this position here because, quite frankly, people are going to start doing this. John Lynch can keep telling everybody how great we are, Super Bowl roster, but the record doesn't indicate that. You think those 2 coaches right there knew, and they started seeing the writing on the wall that things were going south in their offense? Now, maybe a little different for Kyle because it was more injury related.
Exactly.
But in the Rams situation, I got to think McVay went like this. Oh, I'd rather have Goff gone than me.
But yeah, I'm sure that was a big part of it. But again, my point is, whoever the quarterback is, and I'm not necessarily making the case that Jared Goff is better than Matthew Stafford. I mean, Stafford's had a lot of really good years in Detroit. He does have certain things. He can do some things that Goff can't do. But the reality is they got to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But then let's remember that year that Todd Gurley was limited at the end of the season, and he was a non-factor in the Super Bowl, which, we can say he was out-coached by Belichick, but he didn't have Gurley. and so they score 3 points. And so now, again, you look at the players around a quarterback. And the first thing I thought when Cam Akers got hurt, because they were banking a lot on him, obviously, at running back, I said, the Rams are back to being what they were in the running game when Stafford was in Detroit. I checked it out once. In all his years in Detroit, Dan, I think they had one season where a running back gained 1,000 yards, and that was Reggie Bush with 1,006. And so this Rams running backs core looks to be pretty similar to what Detroit was putting out there. And I know it's a passing league, but you still have to be, I believe you still have to be able to run the ball, so teams won't just totally play the pass and not have to worry about the running game at all. And if you can, then you do that, all of a sudden maybe Matthew Stafford isn't as effective as everyone just believes automatically he's going to be. So I think that might be the number one. There's a lot of intriguing storylines around the NFL, but that one's right there in the top 5. I don't think there's any doubt about it, to see if Stafford can do for that team what so many expect him to do.
2 last questions for you here. I want to take you to Baltimore here, and it looks like they're working on a new contract extension for Lamar Jackson. I look at this guy and I go, 80% of the games he's played in, he's won. Against winning teams, he's 10-5. And if you take out the Brady and the Mahomes game, you're talking about 10-3 versus everybody else with a winning record. I mean, do you think he gets up to the Josh Allen deal? Or do you think this is going to be a different type of hometown cooking and maybe a hometown break because he loves the organization? The organization gambled on him. It was Ozzie Newsome's last gift to Steve Biscotti there, saying that this kid could be, he's a different outlier type of player. He wants to get better. How do you see this thing compared to Josh Allen's deal? Where do you see him falling?
Well, it's going to be in the same neighborhood. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And it doesn't matter, sometimes the outside. I remember when Derek Carr signed his contract with the Raiders, and people, he's not worth all that much. He's not, quote, better than this guy who he just passed. Well, that doesn't matter. When teams are re-signing a guy and their quarterback, because they know they have a guy that they can play for a lot of years, they're not evaluating whether he's better than this guy or that guy. It's you have to keep him. Because if you don't, then where are you? Trying to find the next guy? And there's no guarantee that you will. And so that's the deal with Lamar Jackson. You basically have to pay the going rate. I don't know if that means a few dollars more than Josh Allen or whether it's just a little bit in the same neighborhood. Who knows? Who knows where it'll fall? But just like with Baker Mayfield, if you believe that this is your guy for the next 10 years, hopefully, then you do what you can to keep him, like the Cowboys did. It took them a couple extra years, but like the Cowboys did with Dak Prescott. Quarterbacks are, obviously, we see teams chasing quarterbacks all the time. And so if you have one, to me, you just do what you have to do to keep them. And you try to get him signed sooner than later, because if you wait another year, it's going to be more expensive than it would have been if you had signed him then. And the Cowboys saw that with Prescott. If they didn't be able to sign him a couple of years ago, probably would have been for less of a contract.
Okay, I'm going to take you back to the Hall of Fame. I got 3 guys. I'm going to finish up with this. 3 of my you guys, okay? Reggie Wayne, Andre Johnson, and the unicorn, Devin Hester, are going to be eligible for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and for you guys to debate whether or not they're worthy to go in to that great place. Give me your thoughts on those 3 guys, because I think they're 3 Hall of Fame talents.
Let's stay with the wide receivers first, because Reggie Wayne's been a finalist a couple times along with Torrey Holt, and Andre Johnson comes in as a first-time eligible in this next class, along with Anquan Boldin and Steve Smith Jr. So all 3 of those guys are probably Hall of Famers. However, I don't believe they jump the line. It's not like they're Calvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald, who knows how many years down the line it'll be for him if he plays this year or not. But those type of guys jump the line over other guys who have been waiting. Those 3 that I just mentioned, I don't think will. And so I think with Torrey Holt and Reggie Wayne, who are really very similar receivers, I don't know that they both can go in the same year. So it's just a matter of who the voters happen to vote for. Does Torrey go in and then Reggie, or Reggie then Torrey? But I think they both will. Devin Hester is going to be a fascinating discussion, if he makes it to the finals, and he's a first-time eligible next year also. Steve Tasker has been a semifinalist. I'd have to look it up, but it's been a lot of years he's been a semifinalist.
Isn't he like a 9-time Pro Bowler too? Something he's got big-time Pro Bowls on his resume.
And I would argue that a guy who should have been noticed before him and talked about was Bill Bates of the Cowboys, because he set the stage for those special teams cover guys that were difference makers. And so you can make the argument that Steve Tasker is Hall of Fame worthy at what he does, just like you can with Devin Hester. But I think it's only natural that when you start narrowing these votes down, when you're voting on 15 guys from the 25 semifinalists, and let's just acknowledge that Devin Hester makes the semifinals. Well, now you're voting on 15 guys. And what gets in guys' mind is, are you going to pick a guy who's a difference maker at what he does, but for 8 plays a game?
Yeah.
Whatever it might be, as opposed to offensive or defensive players that are out there, some of them on offense for all the plays, like what most wide receivers and offensive linemen, surely. Defensive linemen, not so much, but defensive backs, most of them are out there for a huge percentage of the plays. And so, we're talking about guys who are out there for anywhere from 60 to 75 plays a game. So how do you pick a special teams guy over one of those? And I think that's what hurts Tasker, and I think that could affect Devin Hester. And I remember, Dan, a few years ago when Ray Guy finally got in, and everyone said, oh, that's going to break the logjam for punters and special teams guys. And Morton Anderson did get in within the modern-day group, but he's a kicker. He scores points. Punters don't, even though you can make – and I totally understand all the arguments. But Ray Guy was a finalist, I believe, 6 or 7 times within the modern-day process. Then he went to the seniors. And when he was put forward by the seniors, he got in. And why? Because he wasn't taking the spot away from, quote, a regular player. And I think that's the tough thing we all have with special teams players when it comes down to that nitty-gritty of reducing the list of 25 top players.
Absolutely. White Shoes Johnson, Bates, Tasker, Devin Hester, all of those guys. Devin did make a point to me, though, on what you said. He goes, how many times do you think wide receivers touch the football a game? 5 or 6?
Well,
he goes like this.
Yeah, but
he goes like this. He goes, I go, yeah, about 5 or 6. They have about 5 or 6 catches. He goes, well, I had the ball about 8 times, and I'm the all-time leading special teams touchdown man in pro football history. I changed the game so much so that they changed the kickoff rules because of me.
Well, but a lot of the reason they changed the kickoff rules was for safety.
Well, that's him barking.
Right. But the point is, though, and he's right to a degree on that, because when Devin Hester was out there, even on those ones where he might not have returned the kick, teams accounted for him and kicked away from him. Well, same thing with receivers. Yeah, they're not getting huge number of targets per game, but when they're out there, defenses are accounting for their presence, the great ones. And so, and that's on a lot more plays than when a team is kicking off or punting. So I think that's the key. And again, I'm not questioning at all his impact. That's undeniable, but it's an impact for not that many plays per game as compared to a lot of other players. Hey, great pass rushers. Look at it this way, Dan. A great pass rusher might be on the field for, let's say 700, 800 plays in a season, maybe even more, and they get 20 sacks, or that's a lot. They get 15, 16 sacks. Well,
that's a lot.
But on all the other plays, they're being accounted for. And so that's all a part of the overall evaluation, but it just shows how hard it is and all the different things that we as a committee have to consider.
I hate we have to end this here, but we do. And so we could go on and on here.
Well, we could.
Oh, I know we could, man. I was talking before I let you go. I was talking about Alden Smith. Alden Smith, get this, started 53 NFL games. He's got 52 and a half sacks. He and Reggie White and Mark Gaston are the only guys with that number that every game they started, they basically had a sack in. Missed 4 years because of behavior issues and suspended because of – it looks like now Seattle's going to cut him too. Right. Howard, you see a Hall of Fame talent sometimes that just can't get on the field like a John Jones can't get in the octagon. It's kind of what this is here. That's a damn shame because that guy, if I'm not mistaken, he had like 19 sacks his first year in the league in San Francisco. Then he turned around and had 16 the second year. This guy had 35 and a half sacks his first 2 years, and now he's out of the league, and now he's probably not going to get another opportunity. I don't know. What a waste of talent.
And you saw a lot of them when you were playing, probably.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of them come through. Like you said, all that physical ability, but for whatever reason, there's something missing, whether it's in their work ethic or off the field things or all that. I'll tell you one quick story. I remember the year that Alden Smith was being drafted, and the Rams were looking for a pass rusher. Now they were drafting, I forget where they were drafting, but it was relatively high, and I think they traded down, I believe, and ended up selecting Robert Quinn, or maybe that's where they were. But anyway, I remember talking to the Rams general manager at the time about Alden Smith, and he just shook his head, and he said they had him in for a visit, and he said he acted like the most entitled person he had ever experienced in his years of talking with players. And there was just something about him that said there's going to be an issue with this guy. And he ended up to be totally right.
Boy, if that was Charlie Army, that wasn't going to go well with Charlie Army.
It wasn't Charlie, but it was definitely said to me. And Robert Quinn, there's a lot of questions about him. He turned out to be, and he's still in the league.
Yeah.
This many years, I forget. I don't remember what year that was, but it's been a while. And so, but here, like you said, here's Alden Smith off and on, and was out of the game for as many years as it was, and just can't stay out of his own way. It is a shame. There's no doubt about it.
Do you get a special chair in Canton when you're there? Do the writers get one of those special chairs like the guys got when they were on stage?
No, we don't.
No goodie bag when you get there like the players get?
Not even a goodie bag. No,
Damn.
we just get thanks. They have a state of the hall that David Baker has on Friday morning.
You get a meal?
We do get a meal on Friday, the same time as the Nichky Luncheon. There's another luncheon that has some NFL people, and the board of directors has their annual meeting right after that luncheon. So we do get invited to that nice luncheon on Friday. But that's pretty much. And I'll tell you this: we all, for the enshrinement, we all were sitting one right after each other on the first row of the press box. So that was about it.
That's that. At least at a Super Bowl, I get a goodie bag. Howard, I got to let you go. We could go on for hours, man. Thank you so much, my friend. Thank you for what you do for the NFL each and every single year by putting those fabulous people into Canton. Thank you, my friend. You mean a lot to me. Thank you, Howard.
Appreciate it, Dan. Take care.
You got it. The legendary Howard Balzer, who is one of the Pro Football Hall of Famers, as you can see, takes it very serious. Hall of Fame voter that takes it very serious on who goes into Canton. I say this about Devin Hester. That is going to be, like he said, one of the most interesting players to debate. Because you're right. I've told everyone, Miami couldn't find a position for the guy to play. He was a terrible DB. He was a terrible wideout. They did everything. He's so fast. They did everything in college to try to find that guy. Like a regular, they could never do it. The Bears couldn't. The Bears tried him at wideout. I think it was like their number 3 for a couple of years. And then they just realized, that's it. Forget about it. Let's just get this guy in a game and what he does best. And that's, punt and kickoff return. He was just spectacular. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens when he becomes eligible. Andre Johnson's going to be interesting too, because if you think Calvin Johnson's the first ballot, I surely think Andre Johnson's the first ballot. All right. I want to thank my friends Krause and Cal. Great job as always. Big Joe, we really appreciate it. If you missed any of the show, do me a favor. Go over to the JAKIB Media Channel, National Football Show. You catch us each and every single day, 4 to 6 Eastern time. Till then, we'll see you.